Hello, Panthers fans. Welcome into Panthers.com. Kassidy Hill here with Trevor Sikkema at the annual Senior Bowl. Trevor, so much to talk about for this Panthers class coming up, but let's start with the guy in charge. New guy in the building, Dave Canales. I know this is someone you're very familiar with.
Yes.
As a resident Tampa Bay fan there at PFF.
Yes.
What is your initial impression of Dave Canales as a head coach?
You know, he was so impressive this year in his lone year in Tampa Bay. He was not a play caller before he got to Tampa, so you figured that there were going to be some learning curves, some things that he was going to struggle with early on. But even though that was the case, because it always is with any kind of new time or first-time play caller, he was able to bounce back. And really, as you saw in the second half of the season, especially when they clinched the division, when they got into the playoffs, they were on a roll. And I think the aspect of Canalis that is the most encouraging for Panthers fans is all of the players spoke so highly of him and how he continued to put them in positions to succeed. We feel like that isn't obvious. It should be a duh. That's what coaches do, but it's not always as common as we think. Some coaches are like, no, this is how I want to run things, and they don't exactly have the players to do it. It felt as though Canalis went into this year with Tampa. He looked at Baker Mayfield, he looked at the receivers, the offensive line, the running backs, and he said, okay, let me try to build out a game plan that best serves what you guys do best. And it took him a little bit of time to get fully into rhythm there, but I think as you saw at the end of the season, that is something that he was able to do. And I think that's the most encouraging part is as Carolina is going to continue to build their offense out, whoever they draft, whoever they sign, whatever they end up going with an offensive strategy overall, they're going to be fluid and they're going to be able to get the most out of those guys.
I'm glad you mentioned the running backs, the receivers, the offensive line, because just wanted to touch on that really quickly with him as well. Mm-hmm. Obviously, it's so easy to focus on the quarterbacks, what he did with Russell Wilson, Geno Smith, Baker Mayfield.
Right.
Does that sort of get lost in the shuffle of what he can do for an entire offense?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, again, you go back to what these guys said about him throughout the year, when he left, some of the tweets, the Instagram messages, things like that. And all of these guys just felt like spoke so highly of him. And that doesn't happen if you try to square peg in a round hole these players and you're not getting the most out of them. They're not getting the targets they want. They're not getting the usage. They're not having success as a team. And it just didn't feel like that was the case. Not that it was perfect along the way, but yeah, you mentioned everybody likes to talk about what can you do with quarterbacks. That's why you become an offensive coordinator. That's why you become a head coach. That's how you get those gigs. But ultimately what decides who's a good offensive coordinator, who's a good head coach is you must be able to do this across the whole roster. And now he's not only going to have his hand on the offensive side of things, it's going to be the defensive things as well. But again, looking at how he handled things with his offensive players, it gives you faith that even on the defensive side of the ball, he is going to be fluid to what these guys do best.
You watch a lot of tape in your job with PFF, and so I know you've watched a lot of Bryce Young, especially as he was getting ready for this draft.
Yeah.
Knowing what Bryce Young can do well and looking at this upcoming draft class, so sort of marry those two together, what are sort of maybe the biggest needs to kind of help Bryce take that next step in his game?
Yeah, certainly I think that Panthers fans would say wide receiver, right? They need more offensive weapons, and I think that is something that is very true. Even beyond Bryce needing to get better himself, though football is that ultimate team game and quarterbacks, they are a big piece of that pie, they do truly need that help, and it just didn't feel like he had enough of that this year in Carolina. So it's a super deep receiver class. We've got a lot of really great receivers here at the Senior Bowl, and it just goes to show you it doesn't matter if they don't have a first-round pick, which I know they don't, second, third, fourth, fifth, they will be able to get more than one, I think, impact pass catcher here in this draft coming up. And I think that's going to be a welcomed addition for what Bryce's projection is going to be moving forward.
Last thing, just really quick on that, one of the receivers here at the Senior Bowl is a local Charlotte kid, Tez Walker.
Yeah.
What kind of impact can he have on scouts' opinions, fans' opinions, draft pundits' opinions of him as he gets ready to kind of get ready for the draft?
I like Tez a lot. I watched some of his Kent State tape before this UNC tape that he had this past year, and at the beginning of the 2022 season, he went up against Oklahoma, against Washington, against Georgia, and he looked like not only he belonged, sometimes he was the best player on the field, especially that Georgia game. He played very, very well, and that was a really stout Georgia defense. And so you take that into this year. There's everything with the NCAA and eligibility. I know that was kind of a roller coaster for him, but when he was able to get out on the field, you saw that vertical ability. He is such an athletic player, and I think that's what he's been showcasing here at the Senior Bowl as well. Being able to get off the line of scrimmage very quickly, explosively, get into those long vertical routes, that to me is what's going to be his bread and butter going into the league. And I just feel as though he was not overwhelmed when he was at Kent State. He was playing well with Drake May when he got out on the field. I feel like it's going to be continued success for him when he gets to the NFL level.
It's going to be exciting to watch. Trevor Sikkema, make sure to follow all of his draft analysis on PFF.com. We'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.